Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm very excited. Yes, this energy is amazing. So I'm looking at the number of participants in the chat, and things are happening fast. So let's jump right in. Good afternoon. Happy April 1st. There's no fooling anyone going on today. Welcome to the latest installment of Creative Circle's webinar series, Conversations with Creatives. Today, we're diving into rethinking resumes. And in our audience, as you see, we have a lot going on. We have many different people, hiring managers aiming to enhance their candidate screening process and rethinking how they're reviewing resumes, applicants, industry professionals seeking new opportunities and wanting their resumes to stand out so that they can get job interviews. This conversation is particularly relevant because post-pandemic, let's be honest, the job market is constantly evolving and in non-traditional ways and creating some new norms, especially when it comes to technology and tools. So that's what we're going to talk about: ATS systems, applicant tracking systems. If you're an applicant, it's crucial to know how to tailor your resume and pass through the systems effectively. And if you're a hiring manager, software can be a great tool if you understand its functionality and potential. I want to get started and introduce our panelists. I will kick us off. I'm Ramsey McCoy Hijic, Operations Manager here at Creative Circle, leading the Austin and Houston teams. I joined the Creative Circle team in 2014 on the recruitment side, and today I work directly with hiring managers and internal HR and talent acquisition teams, helping them find their top talent. I'm thrilled to be your moderator today. I'm going to kick it to Tiffany first, but if Tiffany, Cameron, and Cody can introduce themselves, share your job title, how long you've been at Creative Circle, and maybe a current pop culture thing you're enjoying. Could be a song, an album, book, TV, movie. Go for it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tiffany Novak. I'm a lead recruiter with the Philly office. I've been here for a little over 7 years. And we just started watching Good American Family on Hulu, and so far we're addicted. So
I might watch that one myself.
Hi, I'm Cody Pickett. I'm a lead recruiter in our Dallas office. I've been with Creative Circle a little over 10 years. And I just finished Severance, and I was addicted to it. I wish season 3 was already coming out. It was a great show.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait a while for that one, Cody.
Yes, yeah, no. It took 3 years for the last one, so hopefully not that long.
Hey, everyone. My name is Cameron Little. I am a senior recruiter out of our Washington, D.C. office. And yes, I've recently just finished up Severance as well. I typically like to binge that show versus waiting every week. But funny enough, I've actually just started watching Sopranos with my fiance. So one of the best shows ever. And we just got started with it. So very excited to watch, see where this goes.
You are in for a treat, Cam, because Sopranos, that's another classic. So
Mhm.
good ones. For all the guests joining today, a quick reminder, you all have found the chat. Wonderful. Please use the Q&A and chat features for your questions. While we may not be able to answer all of them during the session, we are going to record this and send the transcript and recording to everyone who's registered later this week. Okay, so ATS. With the rise of general AI tools, and as I mentioned before, an incredibly competitive job market, let's face it, staffing and recruitment is rapidly evolving. It doesn't look like it looked years ago. One of the latest buzzwords is ATS, and you may be wondering, what even is that? How do they work? How common are they? It stands for Applicant Tracking System. It is a tool or software that talent acquisitions teams use to manage their job applications. It's helping them organize and filter resumes based on keywords, and just making the process of hiring a little bit easier to find the best candidate matches. At Creative Circle, we do use an ATS system. It is a custom system designed to review more applicants, track job postings, communicate directly with our candidates and our hiring managers, and it allows our candidates to make their own profile where they can share updates of their resume, their experience, their rates, all of that. The tool basically enhances our efficiency and gives us more time for one-on-one with the people we're working with, and we can get more done. Of course, our goal is to help people find more jobs, and help clients find the right talent. So an ATS helps us do that. All companies, though, aren't using them, but it is becoming a little bit more popular. So If you're trying to find the tools and resources and things to be selected and get your resume looking good, you come to the right place. I want to kick us off and field some questions to the panelists, but first we're going to start with a poll. Let's see if we can get that going. We'll give you a little while. Which resume is better for online application, A or B? As you all answer this, Tiffany, if you'll take us through the results, what do you recommend our candidates include on resumes? How should someone make their resume stand out?
Sure. Okay. So 95% of you said resume B was the best option. So yes, that is the right answer. That's perfect. So this is the version of your resume you want to use when applying online. And here's a few key tips on how to make your resume ATS friendly. Okay. Number one, use standard fonts like Arial or Times New Roman, and keep the font size between 10 and 12 points. Okay. Use clear headings at the top of each section. So contact information, skills, experience, and education are all great headers. Use bullet points instead of paragraphs to list your responsibilities and achievements. Avoid using any graphics or tables. ATS software may struggle to recognize complex formatting, so avoid using graphics, tables, or columns in your resume. Okay, save your resume as a Word doc or a PDF. Both formats are ATS friendly. And then lastly, integrate keywords naturally into your resume, especially in the experience sections. So those are a few tips on how to make your resume ATS friendly. Now, here's an example of a failed ATS resume. You do not want to use this version of your resume when you're applying to a job online. So why is this not ATS friendly? As you can see, there's fancy fonts, there's columns and graphics. Plus, the contact information is buried at the bottom, so it may not be recognizable to ATS software. So the only time you'd want to use this version of your resume is if you're meeting with a hiring manager in person and physically handing them this copy, or if you're emailing your resume directly to the hiring manager.
Thank you. These are some really great tips. I know one that I have seen often is people have very visually designed, gorgeous resumes, but I'm curious, Cody, in addition to having an ATS friendly resume, should candidates keep those visually designed ones, or what do they do with them? And how long should a resume actually be? This has been a long standing question. Do I keep it 2 pages? Is 1 page fine? Give us the rundown there.
Yeah, no, so absolutely keep both versions of your resume. I think having a designed or especially formatted resume is very important. I mean, the ATS version, if you will, is really, I think, strictly used for applying online. And depending on what you do, that ATS version may be fine moving forward. But if you're in, more of a communications or a creative role or anything that creates content, like let's say a video production or graphic design or copy or content writing, I think you're going to want to show something that's a little bit more design that shows your personality. And so absolutely keep that designed resume on hand and use it for anything pretty much after the online application, whatever communication you're having with the company, whether it's a virtual interview or in person. Definitely use it if you have it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Cody, because while length is definitely important, you don't want something that's too long. There is a difference between a CV and an ATS friendly resume. CVs typically have a lot of content and the full history. The content is just as, if not more important, obviously, than the length. A well-formatted resume won't just stand out if it lacks that information. Cam, can you share your content suggestions? Should resumes be organized chronologically or functionally? Where does education go? What
Yeah.
about bullet points versus paragraphs?
Yes, absolutely. And really similar to the resume we showed earlier, that is great for an ATS. Having that format, that template design is a great way to go. Of course, we want to make the assumption of having your name, having your LinkedIn profile, your contact information at the top. That's simply for any type of follow-up that hiring manager or recruiter can reach out to you directly. But as far as setup, I think that what we want to really have up top is your initial skills, right? I think that in some cases, people want to put a professional summary, which can be applicable, but I think it's more going to be determined on if you're making a career change, if you're shifting, let's say you're in a specific design field, but you're trying to shift more digital, using that professional summary as an opportunity to do that. However, if you eliminate that, the skills of softwares, technical proficiencies, all of that is going to be key to have at the top. One main reason is that when keywords that are incorporated in the skills section that are important for the job, those are going to appear right at the top of the resume. That will be the first thing that a recruiter or hiring manager is seeing. But following that, you want to make sure you have your work history in a chronological order. Later on in the session, we will discuss areas to add freelance and contract and how we can kind of incorporate that information. But you want to keep it chronological. Clients and employers going to be interested in what you've recently done, and simply just making sure to have the date on there. I think people may put only the years. We want to make sure we have the month and the year as well. Kind of just, we don't want to mislead anyone on the time frame someone was there. But once you're done with the work history part or work experience, you can have the education at the bottom, right? I think the only time the education may be relevant to have at the top is if you have a, let's say, a master's in something that is very relevant to that position. You've recently obtained a PMP. Those are always great things to call out at the top. It may not necessarily be called out within the ATS, but it's great to have at the top for that recruiter's eyes. But anything other than that, education can be simply at the bottom.
That's a really
Oh,
good.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm sorry, Randy. I want to mention the bullets and paragraphs. And
oh
I
yeah.
think a bulleted list is going to be important there. We don't necessarily want to have a narrative paragraph type summary of these. I think we want to have the bulleted list. But we want to make sure that those bullets do have some depth in them. You know, one, maybe two sentences. I don't recommend having 12 individual bullets of just line items of things. Let's condense that down to about 3 to 5 bullets that have a little bit more of, you know, kind of a narrative aspect to the bullet, but with those keywords incorporated in it. Anywhere from 3 to 5 bullets is a great way to keep it. I want to make sure we touched on that, of course.
Yeah, of course. I mean, as we were talking about, content is important, and it's important from a candidate standpoint, but also on the client side.
Mm.
I know with hiring managers, they are looking at particular keywords, skill sets, and the like in order to make sure that the resume aligns with what they're seeking. So I know we'll get more into this in a moment, but Cody, in addition to having an ATS-friendly resume that has the right bullets and the right content, what about responsibilities, accomplishments, the metrics? Like, how does a candidate present that information in their resume?
Yeah, no, good question. And when it comes to content, I also want to take this opportunity to talk about how much content. So not just what type of content, but how much. So to back up a little bit and talk about the length of the resume. So we always say 1 page if you can. If you need to go beyond 1 page, no more than 2. And just consider about how that works from a formatting standpoint too. If you have, maybe a section that bleeds into a second page, it's almost better just to reformat it in a way to fit it all on 1 page. But if you've got enough to put there, extend it all the way out to 2 pages. And I think that's fine. When it comes to what you're actually putting in your resume, I mean, I think Cam really hit on it with from a formatting standpoint, exactly how to lay it out and what order. But when it comes to the actual, material and the content, obviously you're going to want to hit on your accomplishments and your experience and the things that you've done. But I think really when you're considering this, like, what do I actually say? I think a good first question to ask yourself is, what was the impact of what I did? So don't just list your responsibilities and what you did, but what were the outcomes as well, especially when you're talking about your experience. Depending on what role you're in, that may look a little bit different. If you're in digital marketing or research or analytics, you may have some pretty hard data that you're going to put in your resume, whether it's how much engagement or the growth of the social media account, or the performance of an email campaign. If you're more in creative and on the content side of things, that may look a little bit different. And you may want to specify what types of campaigns you worked on, what types of brands that you worked on that were relevant to or adjacent to the job that you're applying to in that industry. And list those types of things. And outside of impact, I think it's important to be specific too. So really get into what you did and how you did it and what was the outcome of it.
I'm so glad you said that. Specificity is what makes ATS resumes do well. From the hiring standpoint, hiring managers and talent acquisitions, it's important that they have every single key aspect that they're looking for in their description, so that when a person is drafting their resume, drafting resume for the particular job that you're seeking, that they're able to speak to the things that align. I know questions will be asked about how many words and all of that. Honestly, it comes down to the years of experience you've had. One thing I know our team was kind of discussing in preparation was summaries, right? At the top of this page. Do we even include a summary? Why? Why not? And we went back and forth because historically we've told people, no, if you're just going to have a bunch of fluff, take out the summary. You don't need that. However, caveat to that, or maybe playing devil's advocate, if you do have a summary, that's where more keywords need to go to, but not just sprinkling them throughout, right? Like using them to tell the story, and help the story of your experience and helping the ATS track what's on your resume. Because again, it's keyword based and keyword focused. So if you have those metrics, that's fantastic. But are they speaking to specifics in your work? Not just, oh, did a thing. How? Tell us more. So with that said, Cody, I'm curious. Well, let me also add this. One of the questions that we received was, I'm going to try to read it for you. My colleagues often imply that I lean too heavily on reviewing skills and example work. This, of course, is coming from a hiring manager. And when they lean more towards years of experience or contacts and business past, what is the right balance and what are the green flags or red flags to watch out for as a hiring manager? So Cody, I'm curious, what would you say are some telltale signs for a hiring manager when it comes to seeing a resume that's, AI driven or just sprinkling keywords throughout?
Yeah, no, I like this question a lot. And so from a hiring manager standpoint, I think there is a balance there. I don't know if you do just one or the other. And I think whoever asked this question's off, they're off to the right start. They're doing it the right way. But I do think you also have to look at experience and business contacts and that background as well for more context. But you should absolutely start with the skills. You should start with the examples. And I think that's the first step is this person qualified to do the job? Do they have the skills? Do they have the tools necessary to do the work here? And then once you've confirmed that, then you can move on to, let's take a deeper dive into their experience. Where have they worked? What industries have they worked in? Is it relevant? Is it, and then get more of that more contextual insight from the resume. But I think first and foremost, you're doing it the right way. You start with, do they have the hard skills that I need? Do they have the tools that I need? And then take it from there. So it's almost combining the two.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I'm curious as we move on. Tiffany, many of our more tenured professionals that are on the call today have asked about updating their resumes and how to stay competitive. So I'm curious if you have any recommendations around that and how they can also represent like career gaps or changes in their profession as they pivot.
Sure. So for our more tenured candidates on the call, try featuring just the last 10 years of experience in your resume. I know it can be kind of tough sometime if you really want to include experience from over 10 years ago. And if you want to do that, include it at the bottom under under the header previous experience. And then just list the name of the company and a project highlight or achievement that you did during your time there.
Yeah.
So that would be
Good.
another way. And then also, just get rid of the year that you graduated. It's not needed. It doesn't matter when you received your diploma. What's important is that you have one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was going to say something similar. I think that's one that's often a concern, age discrimination. And we saw that in some of the people who had asked questions like, how far back should I go about with my work history? And I think this is a good solution. I often will tell people to create what I describe as a highlights resume, where instead of your traditional, where you have, this is the job, when I was there, my title, and a number of bullet points speaking to the work you did in that role. What you find as you've been in your career over time, sometimes the responsibilities repeat. And so you are repeating the same thing in each job over and over again. So instead, at the top, having a highlight section that speaks to specific, if you will, categories. For example, you can say management or customer experience or design or what have you. And then within those highlights at the top, you're putting specific projects and the results and how you achieve those things. And then towards the bottom, including the timeline, if you will, company, title, duration, location. And then that's kind of a 1 or 2 liner that you can put as many as you want. And then, like you said, you can do another section below that that says, other experience or past experience or companies worked for. And I mean, I know we'll get into things about LinkedIn a little bit, but this could be a good segue. Cam, it's so important for resumes to speak about related experience of a role you're applying for. What about the folks with less tenure? Maybe just graduated or 3 or 4 years under their belt and trying to make sure that they stay competitive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think this goes out to not only just with people that may be less tenured or finish up an internship or have 1 or 2 years. I mean, a lot of these tips that I'll provide here can really be applied to anyone that's been doing this for many years, because there's been a lot of great questions in the chat, by the way, a lot of great comments, and we want to make sure to address those. But first, with the less tenured folks, I think a lot of times many can be hesitant on understanding what they may have done in that internship or the first few years at an organization. They don't feel it may be relevant to that job. Maybe they did a task at that company that they may feel for the future they don't want to be a part of, but don't feel that that's not relevant to incorporate on your resume to show your professional experience taking on that activity. Let's say you're a marketing coordinator, marketing specialist, you eventually want to get more into social media. Well, if during the internship you had an opportunity to oversee email campaigns or something similar, do not hesitate to put that on there. You're still early in your career. Show that you've had exposure to that type of activity or task, but since you're early, you're able to make that transition and grow at an organization based on, excuse me, based on what position you may obtain at that place. And I think too, when incorporating the keywords, we never want to over exaggerate or say you led a team at an internship or led a team with only 2 years of experience, but we want to incorporate those keywords such as coordinated or facilitated, or incorporating these quote unquote powerful words that still show that you led or contributed to something greatly, but you just want to use the keywords that can be a little bit attractive, but just not at a very high level. I think many less tenured people put manage or terms like that when in fact 1 year in you likely did not have the opportunity to do that. And one thing I wanted to mention too, Ranze, off of some of the comments here, many people have made comments about what do we do as creatives to kind of weigh out data, metrics, things like that. One thing you may want to think to yourself, you may not have the results of the campaign or those metrics to cover, but think about how many projects or campaigns you may have developed in a specific quarter. Let's say you worked with one client account. How many projects did you work on with that client account? Let's say you're an account manager. How many clients did you oversee at one time? There's so many ways to go about it that may not speak on like what was the ROI to it. However, there's a great way to showcase your great experience in the creative world by showing quantity of how many projects, how big was the team? Did you work in pod environments with your design teams? There's many ways to go about it. I think people just may be hesitant on what they feel may be relevant there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, my brain goes to a couple of different places because I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, we forgot about this. We got to say all these
Oh,
things.
there's so much to go over. It's never ending.
And the chat is looking really good because I'm
Yeah.
like, these are some amazing questions that I know we're
Yeah.
not going to get to all of them, and I want to. So we'll try to go through some of these pre-questions pretty quickly to see what else we can hit. Let's talk about tools. We know that keywords are crucial when making your resume visible on an ATS system. Let me first say that keywords are very vital when it comes to hiring managers and them setting up what they're looking for, right? When they're putting their description together, if you will. And we'll go over some more tips there. But Tiffany, are there any software or tools that you can recommend that can help improve a resume and make it ATS friendly?
Sure. So there's a few AI tools you can use to build an ATS friendly resume or check your resume's ATS compatibility. So a few resume builders include 1 Million Resume. This is an AI resume builder and resume writing service you can check out. Resume Forest is another example. A few resume checkers include Resume Wordit. So this platform analyzes the job description that you're applying to and identifies important keywords and skills missing from your resume. So that was Resume Wordit. And my perfect resume. So on this platform, you can import an existing resume to check for ATS compatibility or build an ATS resume from scratch if that's what you'd like to explore. If you're using an AI platform to build an ATS resume, just make sure to proofread and read your resume line by line just to make sure everything is cohesive, correct, and all that jazz. So
Nice. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what hiring managers can do, Kim. I mean, if I'm a hiring manager, how do I know that someone has made up their resume using generative AI? It's not
Yeah.
always factual, and accuracy is key.
Yes.
What do you think?
Well, I think it's very interesting when you see these resumes come through and you may scratch your head thinking, I can't tell if this person wrote this themselves or it came from a computer. But a few things you can really see on a resume that can be generated by AI is simply the format, inconsistencies with sentence structure, inconsistencies with the wording. That's a huge thing you can see. One big one is the over exaggeration of achievements or over exaggeration of metrics. I mean, terms and phrases and words that we typically see in like big long novels or like a great author would write that it may not be it's kind of AI will incorporate that to make it sound better and add more fluff when indeed that person may not speak like that during an interview or even during a call, right? And a lot of it too is just that, generic language, you may see that as well. And so it can either be over exaggerated or very generic, right? I know they kind of combat each other, but that's something you always want to take note of. But also a little bit of lack of personalization. And I say that too because AI is great for candidates to be able to use as a tool to create the resume. But if they do not put their personal touch to and add the way they would speak about their achievements, you can call that out from that sentence. You can clearly tell this sounds like a robot. This sounds like a chat bot that a company would have on their site. Those are a few things you can kind of notice.
Absolutely. I was in preparation for this, I was thinking about like what are some of the things that I've been encouraging my hiring managers to do when it comes to looking at ATS systems. And I think one of the strong suits in having a tool like this is how it really changes the game in the application process. I think a key thing is communication. ATS systems, like we use it this way, allow hiring managers to communicate with applicants at a larger rate than before. Typically, when people apply for jobs, they kind of fall into the ether, right? At times, unfortunately, can be ghosted when they apply and never hear back. But these systems allow them to track the process from application through hire or notifying along the way. And many times when a person is applying for a job with your company, it's the first exposure to the company culture, right? And what it's like working with you. So I don't know, if you have thoughts, anyone have thoughts on that?
Well,
That
one thing, yeah, I just want to add, like, I always want to encourage candidates too. We know that ATS is very important. We want to get our way through there. But unfortunately, with the new day and age that we're in with this digital world, and we have platforms like LinkedIn that add an easy apply button there are going to be a flood of applicants within these systems. And yes, you want to be the first one seen by that client or by that recruiter. Unfortunately, sometimes things do get, flooded. And you may be on LinkedIn and say, like, how on earth did that posting get 500 applicants in less than 24 hours? Well, now we have these easy apply things, which in fact are not too beneficial for you. We encourage you to kind of go through the application process the proper way and the proper channels. But I never want anyone to get discouraged if they don't hear back from a job application, job posting that has a large pool of applicants. It's very difficult for those hiring managers to get through it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that is something that hopefully those systems can help with. I mean, think about it. If I'm a hiring manager and I'm seeing this large influx of applicants, one of the things I might want to do is pull the job so that so many people aren't seeing it, getting excited about it, and then being disappointed to find out, oh, it's been filled for a month or whatnot. And then, of course, responding and let them know what's going on with the role as well. So I'm curious, Cody, if there are any other resources or ways to get a resume reviewed. Like, sure, we can apply on LinkedIn. I'm sorry, when reviewing a resume, Creative Circle can help, right? There are other resources out there that can help look through your actual resume, tell you what's right, what's wrong, where you can improve. Do you have any resources or recommendations there?
Yeah, I do. It's kind of limitless today. I mean, there's so many tools out there, and kind of just touch on, what we've been really addressing this entire conversation is, they're all great. They can be used to help you. I mean, ATS's AI, I think, AI can really help people format their resumes. It should never be used to, write the finished product, but it can be a huge tool. Applicant tracking systems, and online application systems we talked a lot about the benefit to the client and how it can really help, review everybody and make sure that the right people are getting through. But it's also a huge benefit to the candidate, because you touched on, when things were more analog, sometimes resumes wouldn't even get looked at, right? Everyone talked about, people used to talk about, I want to get at the top of the stack. Well, now you can be rest assured that your resume is getting reviewed by that system, and it's almost getting reviewed instantaneously a lot of the time too. So as long as you're, playing by the rules with the system, you've got, it's going to probably move you forward if the qualifications are there. So in reviewing your resume and using these tools, that's one thing to keep in mind is, as you're crafting your resume before you even get it reviewed, is, I need to make sure I'm putting the right stuff in my resume pertaining to the job description that I'm applying to. So you really don't want too much in there. So it's not all of the keywords, and maybe some of the right ones are in there. And you may have a large amount of experience that, goes in a lot of different directions. You've done a lot of different things, but you really want to just be concise and narrow it down to what you think, help the ATS, help the system connect the dots to your relevant skills, connect the dots to your relevant skills, from your relevant skills, excuse me, to the job description. When it comes to reviewing your resume, tools, like I said, they're limitless. You've got Top Resume and Top Stack out there. Top Resume really helps write resumes. Top Stack can help you actually with career advice as well, and take it a step further in reviewing. Obviously, my first step, I would advise anybody to reach out to a recruiter, especially at Creative Circle. We are more than happy to help review your resume. We are more than happy to review it and give advice. So I think that's a good first stop, to be honest with you. And also lean on your personal network as well. Anybody in your, friend group or your family who's maybe been in charge of hiring in the past, who's been in a hiring position, lean on them, ask them what they look for, give them your resume, get some pointers from them. And then take all the advice that you get from the software, from the tools, from your personal network, from your Creative Circle recruiter, and you can use all of that to kind of refine it yourself.
Yeah, I'm looking through some of the questions to figure out which ones we'll ask, if there's any repeats. But for a second, while I look through these, Tiffany, what is the role of LinkedIn? The portfolio, LinkedIn, your cover letter, like where do those go? Do we keep them? Do we not use them? Do they work together? You're on mute, so we can't hear you.
Sorry. So I would just recommend having your LinkedIn page match your resume. Because I've known hiring managers to, compare resumes to LinkedIn pages. And as far as a cover letter, if you're applying to a job through Creative Circle, you don't even have to write one for us if you're applying to a job through Creative Circle. We make it really easy for you. We just go right to the meat and potatoes, which is the resume. Cody, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that question or.
Yeah, so I mean, they all play a role and it's all situational. I mean, like, yeah, to what Tiffany said, if you're applying through Creative Circle, we do not need a cover letter. And really, I think if someone asked for it specifically for the application process, that'd be one of the few instances I really think you need one. I think going all the way back to what we talked about earlier with the summaries and the skills sections at the top, I think that's really going to be more effective today, especially when talking about applicant tracking systems, which is the focus of this conversation. So I don't think a cover letter can really help with that. So always have your LinkedIn link near the contact section of your resume. That way, you can almost use your LinkedIn as, a backup. That's the opportunity to maybe add a little bit more color commentary about your experience, and give a little bit more context versus your ATS resume, which is going to be more just to the point, factual. Here's what I can do. So that's really the role of LinkedIn. So when it comes to portfolios, I mean, this isn't always going to apply, but I mean, if you're a creative, if you're writing content, producing it, whether it's video or visual, obviously you're going to want to include your portfolio. And again, have a link on your resume, so it's just there for people to easily access. So really, what you want to do is these are all different tools, different levers you can pull in different situations, but they're designed to make it easier to help you make it easier on the reviewer, the hiring manager, to see why you're a good fit for the role.
Yeah, I love that. Kim, I saw you came off of mute.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, a lot of great questions in the chat. I just wanted to kind of go answer some of those as I can. But with the LinkedIn, what I think, as Cody was saying too, the resume is a great way to use that as a, kind of a teaser, kind of a starter to get that hiring manager or recruiter really interested. And that's where we really suggest that 1 page or the max 2 pages. Because remember, LinkedIn is a place that you can go, it's digital, they can keep scrolling and see your entire work history on LinkedIn. It's also an area to add your color commentary. But that's where we see the differences of LinkedIn and the resume. Also, for the LinkedIn profile, absolutely, you can hyperlink it to your resume and simply just put LinkedIn profile. No need to have that big URL. Same thing with your creative portfolios, guys. You can just hyperlink it, portfolio, my portfolio, whatever you want to list it, so the person can click on it directly there. And one thing I wanted to add, in addition to creatives, we know creatives are going to have portfolios, but one thing I've always recommended to communication managers or anyone in a writing field or maybe even in email, find a way to gather some of these examples, not only when you leave that job, but think about it as you're working there actively. Think about what you'd want to take away, what you would want to keep to share with others. Maybe create a Google Drive link or even create a portfolio yourself and add that to your resume with your writing samples. The reason why I say that is that you may not have the opportunity to follow up with the client with your writing samples. So let's get it into a Google Drive link, secure link, or a Dropbox link and hyperlink it to add additional communication, writing samples, things like that. You may not have the chance to follow up. So go ahead and wow them in the beginning.
I agree. I really feel as though when it comes to looking for work, you have to think about it in terms of the world we live in today and not the traditional values from yesteryear. There used to be a time where you had a physical resume, you had a physical cover letter, you took it to the job, the hiring manager literally had a stack, and they would go through and look at each piece. ATS systems allow hiring managers to review a stack like this, but it's actually thousands, number one, of applicants. So when we say make yours stand out, obviously, if all the resumes have the best keywords on there, it's going to come down to who has the most experience that directly aligns with what the hiring manager is seeking. And your LinkedIn and whatever social media platforms or your website, your portfolio, they want to finish telling the story. I think someone said it earlier in the conversation. It starts with your resume, 1, maybe 2 pages, where you're getting to the heart of what you did. You're not giving the fluff. You're not giving the full paragraph of a story. If it's 2 words, clearly that's not long enough. You need it longer because you need to describe what you did and what the outcome was, so that now I know, yeah, you've worked in Photoshop. Yeah, you've worked in PowerPoint, as crazy as it sounds to include PowerPoint. Some hiring managers need to know my designer's versed in PowerPoint. Why? Because we do a lot of presentation decks. If you don't have it on there, even though you may be the best PowerPoint presentation designer there was, you don't have it on your resume. So it's never going to pop up. It is truly, I think someone said, making it an SEO friendly. Yeah, that's a great way to think about it.
Yeah,
You are doing a keyword rich, but not just like pulling random words and sprinkling it through your resume because it has to make sense, but you're being specific in what you've accomplished and telling that story. And then you let your LinkedIn fill in the gaps. So LinkedIn's going to be where you can have someone speaking to the great work that you did and being your recommendation referral type person. You can have links to examples of the projects that you did there, and so on and so forth.
Couldn't say it any
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
I mean, that was great. Yeah.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say, almost think about it like you're making your resume SEO friendly for that system. And that's just kind of the reality of where we are today. So, you're going to want to be found, and you want the system to be able to easily find why you're, qualified for the role. So it's 100% accurate.
Absolutely. Okay, so let me ask you this. Have you all heard of video resumes? Are you familiar with that?
We've heard them before,
Heard of
but
them.
not yeah, we don't find them too much on our side of the
Okay.
recruiting aisle, but they have come up. But I don't see them ever required now.
Okay. And when are they appropriate? Like, if I'm a videographer, does it make sense for me to do a video resume?
I think that if you ever found yourself one thing that comes up, content creators. Now we're getting a lot of these content creator roles, influencer marketers. I don't think it would hurt to have a video of yourself kind of promoting yourself on screen and having a demo reel there, and maybe not a formal interview video. But we have seen people in the video production world that have had kind of a video of themselves and doing an interview component to it. My only comment there is that you want to be mindful of people's time. If you have a 4-minute interview video there, unfortunately, people may not have the time or the energy to go through that entire video. That's why we recommend that paper resume. But always, again, have those demo reels, have those portfolio reels hyperlinked to your resume.
Yeah, Tiffany, I'm curious your thoughts on this. I see a question in the Q&A, and it says, would you recommend having multiple versions of my resume, each tailored to highlight the most relevant aspects of my experience for applications? I know we do typically recommend making a resume for the job you're applying for, but what are your thoughts around maybe industry specific or skill set specific?
Definitely. When I was applying for jobs, I had like maybe 50 different versions of my resume. And you can use the AI tool I mentioned previously. You could try using Resume Word It to create different versions of your resume, because it actually analyzes the job description and identifies like important keywords and skills they may be missing from your resume for that particular job. So try doing that when you're tailoring your resume for different job openings. Try Resume Word It just to help you get it done quicker. So
I love this question. It says, do hiring managers even look at writing samples?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. Yes. Yeah, actually, and I think when it comes to portfolios, whether it's more of a visual portfolio, like if you're a graphic designer, if you're a copywriter, or maybe even a marketing communications person who has to write just various forms of Marcom, deliverables. Yes, they're going to look, and actually we see a lot of candidates don't get through, or they don't get interview requests because they don't have the samples. And a lot of times your portfolio will be open before your resume. Sometimes a lot of the times hiring managers want to go straight to the work. Like, can they create what I need them to create?
Absolutely.
So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would always prioritize, being able to show your samples. If
Yeah,
you
I
have one
think
that's applicable. Yeah.
I think oftentimes, sorry, Cody, I wasn't trying to cut you off. Oftentimes, I think the process of looking for a job can be a very discouraging one, especially when you're not seeing any success. And if you've had interviews, but you're not getting the job and you're applying and throwing things out there, sometimes spaghetti, and seeing if it sticks, it gets a bit discouraging thinking, oh, no one is seeing what I'm even putting out there. But the reality is, every single time you put something out there, make sure it's quality. And the reason I say that is we do work with hiring managers that are reviewing these examples, portfolios, and resumes. Some that will review with a fine-tooth comb, some that are trusting us to have done the initial screening and making sure that key skill sets and things are there, and they're just wanting to confirm it and get straight to the interview. It is competitive, so you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward. As frustrating as it may feel and seem, trust. They are reviewing, especially writing samples. If you're applying for a content or a copywriter or anything related role, they want to make sure grammatics are there, everything's grammatically correct, spell check and spelling is correct, voice, right? Of the way that you write, style. I mean, what am I missing?
Yeah, well, Renzi, I want to mention one thing that you were mentioning with the quality over quantity. Absolutely. That goes for design and communications, especially in the design field. I think many people will put all the things they've designed over the years, but unfortunately, something that you designed 8, 10 years ago, it's just not going to be as relevant anymore. I mean, guys, we have to think the tools, the dynamics of marketing and creative change like every 2, 3, 4, 2, 3 years, honestly. But I do agree with the quality over quantity. Put some of your best work out there as long as you're able to share it. Always make sure you're able to share this work publicly. And I also saw a comment too about password protection. Put that password on your resume with resumes that you're sending directly to any applications. Definitely put that on there. You don't want a client to miss out on a great piece of work because it's password protected. Again, because you may not get to that next round to supply it to them. And lastly, Cody was mentioning this in regarding to the samples too. Encourage, never hesitate to ask a recruiter or anyone you're working with, what examples can I provide to you? Of course, as recruiters, we should be asking, but never hesitate to offer up anything you can provide. We are willing to, here at Creative Circle, we're willing to work with you to make sure we're providing the best work to that client, but even outside of us on your own, work with that recruiter to make sure they're representing you the best way possible.
Yeah, I'm
Absolutely.
glad this came up. Sorry, Rams, they were kind
No, you're
of,
good.
but I'm glad it came up too, because it's yeah, quality over quantity, and then take it a step further, relevancy. So kind of again, going back to what we talked about earlier, the samples should be relevant to what you're applying to. So when it's your writing samples, are they industry specific? Are they the types of deliverables the job description's asking for? And this is really more so during when you're applying. You haven't talked to anybody yet, right? So am I showing the right types of samples that pertain to the job description? Think about, kind of put yourself in the hiring manager's shoes, or the HR person's or the recruiter's shoes. Am I showing them what they need to see to move me forward? And really your job description is the guide. So, pick just a handful of really strong resumes, or sorry, really strong samples that are relevant to the job. And I think you'll see a lot more traction there.
Absolutely. I saw another question that asks, oh, and now I lost it, but it's speaking to what tools or software to include on your resume. And I think I saw like Slack, Asana. I can't stress it enough. If you work in a software or a tool ever, Word, Photoshop, Illustrator, Canva, anything, put it on your resume. Why? I know sometimes we think, oh, everybody works in Microsoft Word. True. But what about Google Docs or Google Drive? Does everyone work in those? Like that might be a skill set that if the hiring manager sees it, they maybe have interest in that because that might be how, depending upon the size of the company, how they share their content, right? And having someone who already knows that is far better. Slack or Asana. Most companies are using a system like Microsoft Teams to communicate, definitely project management software like Monday.com. If you don't have it on there, it's like it doesn't exist. You don't have the skill set if it's not on your resume. Are there any other ones that you all recommend or any that maybe people don't even think about?
Yeah, I think
Wow.
you nailed it. Like if you've worked in it, put it. And I mean, going back to what Cam was saying earlier about a skill section, or some people have like skill sections like design, SEO, display, marketing. And then there's like a software section or a technical skill section. And that's where you can literally list these things. And not only does it make it easier for the hiring manager just to kind of at a glance see that you have these technical skills, but obviously kind of going back to what we've been talking about here is the ATS. It can also easily scan and see that you have that tool that's being requested in the job description. So I think absolutely, if you've worked in it, list it, maybe highlight the ones that you know are the most relevant to the job. So you're always going to tinker and tweak your resume to be relevant to the job. No one has time to overhaul their resume for every job they apply to. But this is what's great about these sections, these skill sections. You can maybe don't take anything out, to Ramsey's point, have it in there, but maybe move some things around. The most relevant, tools, most relevant programs are maybe at the top of that specific section in your resume.
Yeah, good to add to that. Absolutely. If there's a program that you've recently worked with at an employer, you can incorporate that within the bullet points as well. So, because you may have worked with, a Salesforce Marketing Cloud or a different email software at a company a few years ago. Well, incorporate that in the bullets there. That way they know, okay, it's been a few years I've worked on that, but I have worked with it before. But fine, you can always take those tools and softwares and incorporate it in those bullet points. And I do agree, I would put it on your resume if you have worked with it. However, I think it should be, if you've worked with it for a few months or maybe a year included, if you've just dabbled in something because you're just picking around in it at work, I probably wouldn't include that. But
Yeah, really good point.
that you've had
point of specifying
experience
that.
working on for six months or a year. But yeah, I think all that can be relevant. And one thing I'll add to a lot of people here in the comments, soft skills, we do still think they're important to get there. And the reason being is that once your resume is past that ATS system and it gets to the hiring manager, that's what those individuals are going to be looking for. So don't feel that soft skills aren't relevant. Maybe where they're listed on the resume may change, but that shows your personality a little bit with soft skills. So don't feel they're not relevant, guys. I see a lot of comments in there too.
I'm going to ask this one last question because it sounds like it may be helpful for hiring manager. When a hiring manager is writing a job description for ATS, what needs to be put in for qualities or what they weigh? When I read this, it can go multiple ways, but I'm curious what your thoughts are when you hear that first. Tiffany, any thoughts around that?
I'm sorry, what was the question? Hiring manager is writing an
Writing
ATS friendly job description.
Yep. What should they weigh?
I'd say the most important skills, keywords, maybe put at the top, or a list of must-haves.
Absolutely.
And incorporating those keywords there.
Absolutely. I think often, many times, hiring managers may not directly be working with the ATS and maybe their internal TA teams. So I think it's also sitting down and having a conversation with your recruiter, your internal recruiter, about specifics and what you need this role to look like and what the person will be doing day to day, because those type of specifics will help the candidate or the applicant as they're drafting and putting together their resume. Okay, so we are at the 5-minute mark. We've covered a lot and so much more to cover. I feel like we need another discussion just to get the rest. As we wrap up, I'd like each panelist to give one tip for job seekers and one tip for hiring managers to close this out. And we've got 4 minutes.
Well, I can give you a quick tip there. First, and I've seen this in the chat too, I think that as you're creating a resume, as you're applying to jobs, I think it's very important to really take all of the feedback and advice and tips that you receive from anyone with great consideration, right? Most importantly, if there are a lot of common themes with feedback, even look at the chat. There's a lot of common things that you've heard from people. Really take that in consideration. But any advice that may be combative, or one person said this, one person said that, take it with a grain of salt. Definitely incorporate it in the resume if you feel confident to use that, but really take those common themes that everyone's agreeing on and really apply that to your resume. And as far as the hiring manager side of things, I really encourage hiring managers, once you have a trusted recruiting partner internally that's getting individuals past the ATS stage, really have that first conversation. 15-minute, 20-minute call. It's really hard to value people's personalities and work ethics straight from a resume. So really do what you can to take the time to speak with that individual. If they're checking off 7 of the 10 check boxes, we encourage you to have that conversation. I think that's where many applicants are feeling less confident because they're not getting the conversations. I think that's important.
Yeah. So I think you'll hear a common theme with a lot of this advice is take the advice. I think for applicants especially, take a little bit of time too, and make sure you're customizing your resume to the job you're applying to. I said it earlier, and I really can't say it enough. I think you really want to try to make it as easy as possible for the system and for the hiring manager, whoever's the human is on the other side of that system, to be able to see quickly at a glance why you're qualified for the job. So again, reshuffle those keywords, reshuffle those skills and technical skills to be listed first. So it's easy to find, make it SEO friendly, and just make sure it's applicable to the job. So just, always think about that before you just start using what Cam mentioned earlier, the mass apply or the easy apply buttons. Those can oftentimes eliminate your ability to do this. And I think that's really what makes your resume most effective, when you can tweak it. For hiring managers, I would advise to open or enter into any search with an open mind, to look at transferable skills and experience, and people with maybe experience in adjacent industries if they're not exactly applicable to your industry. I think it opens up the talent pool, and there's a lot of candidates who can bring value to your company versus really trying to focus on finding the perfect candidate. So I think obviously the skills and the experience need to be relevant, but I think when you're prioritizing those transferable skills, you can find a lot of great people out there.
Thanks, Cody. So for my candidate tip, so just break up your resume into easily digestible chunks using bullet points to highlight key information. Also keep it short. Recruiters often have limited time to review resumes, so try to keep your resume concise and to the point. Just remember the 3 C's rule: clear, consistent, and concise. So for hiring managers, my tip would be, if you're not seeing the specific work samples in a designer, copywriter resume or portfolio that you're really looking for, instead of passing on this candidate immediately, just maybe have the candidate mock something up or have them do like a quick test project of something that you're looking for.
Thank you, everyone. I think it was in the chat. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to follow on social media. Stay tuned to your inbox for the recording and the transcript. I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.